Hey, you're listening to Don't Lie to Your Life Coach podcast with Kim Arrington. I'm Kim Arrington. I'm a life coach, a weight loss coach, an author, and a badass passionate about helping you connect back to your most authentic self. Join me here each week so I can coach you on how to think all those juicy thoughts that get you feeling your absolute best and taking some big ass action. Coaching has changed my life, and it can change your life too. I'm here to give you real life solutions to create a life you'll love. Because the truth is, boo, you ain't just got problems, you got options. Hey. So as promised, I'm going to package, haven't decided which one's going to go first, but I'm going to package this podcast with the people pleasing podcast. We are talking about survival mode today. I actually didn't make any notes. I feel like I'm a survival mode G. I know about this very intimately. So let me give y'all a working definition. Survival mode is when you have diminished your joy, often diminished your pleasure. Remember, we do not see addictions as pleasure. That is not pleasure. That's something else. That's often control. That's looking for power. That's something else. That's not pleasure. Okay. You often have isolated yourself. There are actually two types of survival mode. So I'm going to say this is type A. Okay. This is the one where, your life is pretty much looks the same day in and day out. I want to go back to isolating yourself. You're not vulnerable, so you may not have as many friends. This is not for the people who love being by themselves. I ain't talking to y'all. It's not for the introverts who are like, oh, am I in survival mode? No, you're an introvert. You get power and energy from being by yourself. Now, this is something different. But there's this creeping feeling that there's something wrong. That is what really differentiates survival mode from you needing a minute from folks, or you getting over the pandemic, like being by yourself. No, this is something where there's a kind of creeping feeling in you that life could be different, that life could be better. You are going through the motions. Okay. If you were to ask your friends, if you may have a friend or two, or it's not a quantity thing, it's a quality, right? But if you have people, they're concerned about you, they're concerned about your habits, they're concerned about your life. Often survival mode comes with different habits: over drinking, overeating, overspending. You are trying to use the outside to avoid the inside. Okay, so that's type A. I want to talk about a little bit more of an insidious one. I don't know if that's the word I really wanted to use, but one that's a little bit harder to detect. Okay, it's survival mode B. So survival mode A, pretty much anyone can look at it and be like, I'm not sure what's going on there, but something's seeming like it's out of sorts. Survival mode B, though, is harder to detect. On the outside, and I just know so many people in survival mode B, right? On the outside, your life looks great. You have the friends, you have the job, you got the car, you got the spouse, you got the kids, you got everything society told us we were supposed to have, right? But you don't have yourself. This is why I packaged this podcast with the people pleasing podcast, is because your authentic self didn't make the decisions for your life. Your fictional or your representative, the person who you created to survive, made these decisions. And you, just like type A, bae, are going through the motions. You do not feel connected to yourself. You have a creeping feeling something is going wrong. And this is the one, I see the news all the time, and people will say things like, well, they seemed so nice and they didn't seem anything. They were survival mode B. It wasn't all dysfunction coming out of your earlobes. It wasn't obvious. It wasn't easy to see, yet it was absolutely there. Now I'm going to tell you, when it comes to realizing you are in a survival mode, there's a couple of things I want you to think about, okay? So as a coach, this is usually the reason why people come to me. I get the A'ers and I get the B'ers. The A'ers don't really know how drastically life can change with just some attention to self, with answering questions like, do you really want to do this? One of the biggest things I do for my client as a coach is I ask them the questions they never ask themselves. I say, like, do you really want to do that? Because you don't seem like you want to do that. Why do you want to do that? Who else can do that? Put it down if you want to. I allow them to ask themselves those questions and to give themselves permission to be different. That in itself can take survival mode A to the next level. Survival mode B, though, those are the people who have the practice responses, who are often over responsible, who don't believe that they are allowed to make changes in their lives. And when you start asking them those questions, defensive Dana and defensive Derek show up and come for you. There's really not that much difference between survival mode A and B. Survival mode B may be a person who's gained a lot of success in a particular field or a particular job, and they freaking hate it. They are the person who scared to death to answer those questions because they don't know what's left. Their identity is so closely tied into who they've projected to the world. And I'm gonna be honest with you, survival mode A and survival mode B, it's going to be a bit of a painful process. It's going to be a lot of, well, I don't know. It's going to be looking at people, disappointing people, deciding that you don't want to do things in the same way, making a choice that has outcomes you may not like, and then having to make other choices until you get to where you want to be. In midlife, the survival mode B is the one that I see the most. Now, survival mode A, that's the one where, everybody's like, it's a little more obvious. I see that more in people's 20s and their 30s. But by the time people have reached their mid 40s, 50s, and 60s, that's when survival mode B comes in. And can I just be honest? Can I just tell the all truth? Okay. You're going to get hit with B. You probably got hit with A, and you worked your way through it. You read some books, you went to the therapist, you worked through, the issues you think you have, and you might naively think that now I might be speaking for myself, my own experience. You may think, oh, I've worked through those issues, they're gone, and nothing else is going to come up, and I can live a happy life and buy a Peloton. Okay. But survival mode B is often lying in wait because there's more work, there are more questions, there are more things to show. Survival mode B is often, I'm literally laughing that I've come up with the A and B. Okay. Survival mode B usually goes to self-medicating too. This is the person who starts off with a glass of wine at night, and before long, they're up to a bottle. A lot of people saw this in the pandemic. These are the people who they have an affair because they want to view themselves in a different way, and seeing themselves reflected back in the eyes of another person feels like a way to do that. There's no judgment right here with me. That's part of my job. I've got to be the person who looks at you and says, yeah, you're actually not crazy. This is why this is happening. There's an underlying cause, okay? Survival mode B are the people who they got kids in private school. They're driving their Benz, their Mercedes, or at least their Prius. And what the hell? They have this house and they have a vacation home they share with 3 other people. What are they going to do if they decide they don't like their 6-figure job? You're going to answer your questions. You're going to answer what comes up. You're going to decide that, hell, I just saw a TikTok that was like, you don't get out of this life alive. You're going to decide, you're going to have the full, Kara experience, the full, Jaleesa experience, the full Kim experience, which means you're going to mid-course correct. I really can't give you anything better than that. So what is a really bite-sized way to start if you're an A'er or a B'er? To me, journaling, getting your ideas out on paper, picking up your phone, talking to yourself, trying to figure out, put it in a place where it's yours and that it can be respected in your privacy. And one of the things I see the B'ers do all the time is they are trying to figure themselves out, and they're also trying to explain themselves to a spouse or someone else because their spouse or another person in their life is having a reaction to their changes, and they don't even have enough velocity to explain it to themselves, let alone explain it to somebody else. So you're going to have to decide. I use this metaphor with my clients sometimes of a garden gate, right? Like you are inside of your own garden gate and everybody else is outside, and you close your gate to the outsiders. You allow yourself to work through what you need to work through. And you definitely can give a disclaimer. Hey, there's some things coming up for me. I'm not ready to talk about them yet. I'm not even sure if I'm going to be ready to talk about them. I just want to give some attention to them. So you can make requests. I'd like to have space. I'd like to have every Saturday morning to do this. I'd like to pull back from the responsibilities. I'd like to hire someone to come in for a while to do the cleaning or the cooking, or I'd like to go to my job and take, a leave of absence. I'd like to consider a sabbatical. I'd like, and when I say make a request, here's how requests work. You get to make your decisions, right? People aren't going to like this. When y'all get mad at me, everybody wants to go to the hardware store and call their spouse and say, can I buy the lawnmower? This is not that kind of question. These are survival. We are trying to get away from survival mode to at least neutral. Okay. We don't even got to get to thriving yet. We just want to get to things are like this, straight line versus they're going to, the heights, right? So you're going to have to, when I say make a request, I mean, you're going to say it. And if your request is not honored, you're still going to figure out how you're going to meet your own needs. We do not need other people to continually meet our needs. We are that person who continually meets our needs. We can, however, ask, we can make requests, but that does not mean that person has to honor our request. But the way for us to not betray ourselves is for us to honor our request. I do want to bring up something that the holistic psychologist talks about, where one of the basic building blocks of getting back to yourself, reconnecting yourself, is to keep one promise to yourself a day. So whether that is going on a walk, whether that is 5 minutes of meditation, it doesn't have to be a big promise, whether that is drinking a glass of water, like you begin to build the relationship with yourself by just doing one thing. You can check out her website. She has a whole journaling process that I used for about 6 months. It was super helpful for me. So yeah, the first thing to recognize is things are a little hairy, that there are things that need attention. And, I always say it, y'all, I'm completely biased. This is where you hire a coach to accelerate this process, or a therapist, or a support group, or you begin really diving into reading. This is pretty much the same advice I gave in the people pleasing podcast, that you begin to honor what you used to love doing when you were 8 years old. Like, you go back to that. Like, for me, you always hear me, got this on my head, you'll always hear me talking about going into the woods. Well, the reason why I go into the woods is because that's what I loved when I was 6, 7, and 8. And now I've returned to that. And that is my promise I keep to myself. Like, I hike, I connect to myself in nature. I get to see what I'm made of in nature. Like, that's what I'm saying. You have those things too. If you loved football, maybe you join a flag football league, or ultimate frisbee, or something that expresses your physicality. Sometimes just one or several little tweaks in your life. Survival mode can be all about you just going from home to work, and you're not giving yourself boundaries, which are your power. Boundaries are your power to yourself. Like, I don't want to answer emails at 3 a.m. in the morning. I don't even want to have a job that answers emails at 3 a.m. in the morning. And maybe you don't even quit the job, but you go have a conversation. I remember I was working at a place and I was like, the culture here is not to take vacations. We need to take and use our vacation. You may be able to say to your higher ups, and I know when you're a climber, you're not supposed to do this, but fuck it. I mean, it's not working. Your life is diminishing. What are you going to do? Are you going to take the buoy that's thrown to you to save you, or are you going to drown? That's the question to ask yourself. You have to try different things to figure out how to move that needle from, surviving to neutral, and then ultimately to thriving. And let me just say this. I said this earlier. So many of us think that once we do this, we never have to do it again. But we're humans. We work in cycles. You may cycle through this several times. You already have in your life. You may not have called it survival mode. You just been like, I just don't feel good or whatever. Like, but at the end of the day, you may go through this. Like, you might have started out a pediatrician and you might end up being a fine jewelry maker. Second careers are born in survival mode. Honesty is born in survival mode. Getting back to who you really are, your authentic self, is born in survival mode, and your mama might get mad. who you end up becoming, who you end up bringing home for dinner, what you end up saying you're not going to do. So if you want, our bodies, our nervous systems are wired to give us information about how we're feeling, thinking, seeing, hearing, our senses. We are designed, even sometimes illness is designed to give us information. And what I want to say to you is that you can pause. You can pause. You can take the vacation. You can take a sick day or 2 or 3. You can pause to decide what it is that will work and help you to be who, where, and what you want to be. You got to keep listening. Keep listening. Go to my website. Check out my 3-part video series. Hop on my wait list where I'm taking new clients, and go, check out KimArrington.com to see what else is going on. I just want to tell you, I got about 6, I think, maybe even 7 years of podcast topics. You're not in this alone. Okay, you're not in this alone. If you could see a cross section of my clients, you would know that the themes that come up are often so common. That's going to be a podcast, the themes that come up in a life coaching session. Okay. Anyway, y'all, one foot in front of the other. How you feel today, I say this all the time to clients, how you feel today doesn't have to be how you feel in 6 months, tomorrow, 3 weeks. And you can always get back to yourself if you're willing to do the work. All right, I'm going to go take a shower. Bye.
Are you feeling what you just heard? Good, good. Repeat after me. You don't have to figure it out on your own again anymore. I'm here to help. Head over to KimArrington.com and download my free video series dedicated to getting you feeling your best right now. Look around, there's some good stuff waiting on you. Got questions? Well, we're always talking on the socials, so find me on YouTube, Insta, and the book. Don't be shy, y'all. Go listen to another episode or join me here the same time next week. Finally, don't keep good shit to yourself. Share this with a homie that could use some help too. Remember, we're not lying to ourselves anymore. We're not lying to our doctors, and you damn sure don't lie to your life coach.